up here on Mill Street, about Carpenter Road, and go down over the creek bank, and there was a great big sewer that emptied water into the creek. You crawl back in there about 10 feet, and a gas line went to, and it was always leaking. So years ago, Harry lit a match to it, and it was just a little flame. So he'd have me and Mike crawl back in that great big round water drain pipe with a hot dog on a stick and roast them over that little fire. And then we'd come back out, put them in a bun, and we would eat them.
When people say that I'm a strange duck, I tell them maybe so and so. Sure, I'm a little different from you, but I don't really see the issue. So don't go frittering away your sympathy. There ain't nothing wrong with me. I consider it good luck that I was born a strange duck.
Yeah, he was odd. I mean, Harry always wore a button-down shirt, and he always had that tuft of hair sticking out, and he always had hair coming out of his ears and nose. But it's just the way it was.
Harry's always had his hair grew out of the top of his shirt, too. I just remember that. It's all his hair. He was not the one to try and impress anybody. Harry is what you see, what you get.
He looked like an Ewok. In the middle of the winter, his shirt would be all open and tons of hair coming out, and it would blend in with his beard, and the hair on his ears would come down his eyebrows. He was just a fascinating fella.
Well, Harry Bauer was a good old man. I don't know if anyone has seen him or remember how he looked, but he always had raggedy clothes on, and he had enough hair that come up out of his shirt, you could probably braided it.
If you saw the guy, I mean, he was dirty, grubby, wore old clothes, was grimy, had hair that grew off his neck. You know, he wasn't well kept. He kind of spooky if you'd never seen him before.
The doodler. That's how we knew him. Mom started the flea market, and back then it was all antiques. There was a snow cone machine guy. I got a snow cone and I got red, and he came up and he said, "What is that?" I said, "It's a snow cone." I'm kind of backing away. So he said, "Wow, I've never seen flavored ice." So I just kind of did a big-eyed at him. I said, "Well, I got to go now." So he probably was a very nice man. He just scared me because I was a lot younger.
Laura and I moved to Gahanna about 1980, and we started seeing this old guy riding around a bike. And no matter, it seemed like he was here and there and everywhere. And it's really odd because the Harley had the seat that was wider than anybody had, and it had the springs on it. And well, he had that on his bicycle.
Nowadays, if you would see somebody riding a bike like that, you'd be a little frightened, like, oh dear, you know, we shouldn't go close to him. But this man, he knew everybody, and he was an extremely intelligent man.
He was a smart guy. He was just kind of on a different frequency, is about the best way I can say it.
I think he was a pretty brilliant man, just didn't look like it.
He was a genius. Harry worked at Curtiss-Wright, which then became North American Rockwell Aviation.
Guy's super intelligent. Worked for Rockwell, has several patents.
I don't know what for, but he actually had a patent, so he brought in a little bit of money from whatever it was. But he was a very smart guy.
Well, from what I gather, he was the final inspector at the Curtiss-Wright airplane factory. When a plane was done, he walked around and said, "Okay, it's done." So he had to be pretty smart.
At Columbus, Ohio, the Curtiss-Wright factory is the nation's largest for the building of dive bombers for the Navy.
He had an airplane a glider that he built, and it was always up against his house.
But he built a glider and flew it. He built a glider and flew it. Okay, I mean, think about that.
Harry built a glider. My dad would take it up someplace up on Clark State Road, it seems like, that Harry had access to a field. And the thought was to pull the glider to try and get fast enough so Harry could get up and fly around. But I think Harry just wanted to do the thrill of sitting in that thing and seeing what else he could do to it to imagine it would fly.
And you never saw it fly?
I never saw it fly.
I think it's real easy with people like this for things to be exaggerated. But I really searched myself, like, you know, did he really make a glider? You know, I didn't see that. That was before my time. But again, I found a reference to it in the 1939 Tri-Community News.
We were going out Havens Corners, past 605, and he pointed over in this field. He said, I crashed a glider up there one time.
Kind of funny, but good man, very good. Oh, Harry, yeah, man of his own. He very good mechanic. He could do anything, pretty much. Helped a lot of people.
He was the bicycle repairman of Gahanna. You know, if you had a flat tire or whatever, you take it down to Harry and he'd fix it.
As I was growing up, I mean, he was the bicycle guy in town.
Then we'd go down to his island and we'd have the bike races.
It was always called Harry Bauer Island because he had a BMX bike track.
Seemed like every Sunday, get 5 or 6, 8 guys to have bicycles and have a race. One year I won it, and he stamped out a little piece of metal. That was your prize, and we didn't care, and we had bragging right for a week.
I mean, it was like something, it was remarkable. I mean, it was like stock car only bicycles. I mean, we'd be ramming each other and stuff, and there was no safety helmets and just all that kind of thing. But anyway, he would have us go. I think it was something probably like 25 laps, whoever made it first. And I remember guys, I mean, we'd be taking sticks, jamming them in each other's, spokes of bikes and stuff.
Harry'd build a fire, and then once the fire got going good, he'd throw a can of paint in there, and when the paint blew up, that was the signal to go.
Harry would constantly set the bank on fire over there, or set the island on fire, and they'd have to get down there and put the brush fires out and all that. I think he did it on purpose just so he could get it cleared so he could get his bicycle race going, but.
Oh, Harry Bauer's house. So the day after my 18th birthday, I joined the fire department as a volunteer. And that night was my first run was at Harry Bauer's house. So
They heard the siren going off at the firehouse. Well, my mom was a fire phone operator. No calls came in, like, what was going on? And probably about a minute later, we get a call, and it said Harry's house was on fire. So we all ran out and got in our vehicle and drove to Harry's house. I was the pump operator. It was a basement fire.
From the floor to the ceiling, he would stack newspapers.
Harry had taken firecrackers and lined the ceiling of his basement in case anything went off, the firecrackers would go off. Well, that's what alarmed him. He went down to the firehouse. He was the one that blew the siren.
Literally, there was enough room around the furnace to get down in there. And when we went in there, we had to crawl on our bellies to get to the center and then drop down to the floor.
Matter of fact, he was on the fire department one time, or tried to get on, and the only way to get on was you had to have a phone so the operator could call you to let you know what to do. Since he didn't have a phone, he couldn't be on the fire department, but he knew where the switch was at to blow the siren.
The house was, it was a fire trap. As a child, I didn't see that. As an adult looking back, I mean, it was just full of stuff.
I've been to his house many a time. He always had an old car outside, and his big stone front porch, and it was always stacked full of stuff.
I did look in the house, and yes, there was pathways, and he kept things stacked on top of each other, but to him it was some kind of order.
I found him to be kind of a social commentary on the times. He was routinely in and out of dumpsters, digging for trash or food. He wasn't part of modernization.
What he would do is he would take his money and stick it in between the newspapers in the basement.
He had boxes of cash on the steps, literally stepped in a box of cash on the stairs.
Something I never understood was how much Harry was worth. You wouldn't think he was worth anything, but at the same time, I look at it now and I think he might have had some money stashed.
Well, he comes out with 3 toolboxes, and he said, "You got a place to keep these?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I don't want them sons of bitches to get them." I've seen him get mad, but that was the only time I heard him cuss. I took and put them away, and then 4 or 5 years after he died, I pulled them out. One was his toolbox from the shop, and 2 of them were filled with coins.
But Harry moved in with a guy named Elmer Sindel.
He moved in with a fella up off of Cherry Bottom.
And he was an eccentric like Harry, not as extreme.
He told me one day they called in a guy to fix the furnace, and Harry told me he had a box of gold that he put up over the rafters in the basement. And he said the people left for lunch and never came back, and he went down and found that his box of gold was gone. He didn't say how much, but it really upset him.
Yeah, after Harry's mom died, I think is when Harry started going up there. Part of it too was the fire department got all over Harry down there because of it being a fire trap. It was just jam-packed with stuff.
But he would pile his yard with other people's garbage, things that he wanted to fix someday or use for some purpose. What drove all the neighbors nuts. So we talked, we got to do something about Harry Bauer. What are we going to do? So we said, we don't want to prosecute him. What can we do? Well, Senior Services was very helpful.
The mayor wrote an article about Harry. I remember this was in the Enterprise, and it was kind of a dedication to Harry of sorts, where he said, we have to have codes. It was a fire trap. But he said, I remember he has the line in this article about justice needs to be tempered with compassion.
Then we sent our street department down to take a couple dumpsters and fill everything up. And our street superintendent was a wonderful guy. Buck Jewell, when we did it once, then we had to do it again a year later because he rebuilt the stuff. Every year we'd have to do it. And he'd say, don't make me do that again, Mayor. I don't want to do that. He said, Harry comes to me, he says, Buck, don't take that. Buck, I need that. Buck would go, Harry, I got to take it. It's my job. So he said, I hate cleaning that up. It's awful. But Buck did it, and he'd clean it up, and then Harry'd mess it up again, and we'd go down and do it again. So, but, normally you'd have written him a citation because he was violating the zoning code. Well, he's a great guy, and he's not able to. Psychologically, he couldn't get rid of that stuff. No matter, you could put him in jail for a couple of days, he'd have probably been glad to sit there. He wouldn't have got rid of his stuff. So we found a way to do it.
So I talked to Harry about it, and I said, Harry, I'd really like to have a machine. And I said, there's no way I can do it. I said, you know any way I could do it? And one day he came up and handed me $1,200. And then about 1992, Laura and I had to break into Mom's house and found her dead on the floor. One afternoon, I went down to tell Harry about it. I didn't go down to tell him about it. I went to give him his money back. And I told him I found Mom, and everything I'd heard, he was real close with his mom. So we sat there and had a good cry on his porch, and I tried to give him money back, and he wouldn't take it.
You're just drawn to him. You learn from him, and he was passed it on without you even feeling like you did something. You absorbed it. It's just too bad there's not someone like that for every kid every day now. I hear his laugh today. He just closes his eye, I can hear his laugh.
He was a friend. He really was. If I need something, somebody called me up one time, wanted me to cut a tree down in Bexley. I asked Harry if he'd ride along. He worked harder than anybody I've ever worked with to help me take that tree down. Wouldn't take anything for it. You'd had to know him a little bit to know he had a heart in there, and he was really good.
He was just an icon, so to speak.
He had used the island. He's the only one that had. It was kind of barricaded with water and swamp, and nobody went out there. He was the one that foresaw what the island could mean to Gahanna. So we dedicated it to him, and one of our residents who knew him and was one of those little boys wrote the plaque that is on the big rock today.
So we bought this plaque, past the hat, and bought the plaque that's down there on the north end of the island. And I wrote this inscription for it. And I think just as summary, I think it captures Harry pretty good. And it says, welcome to Harry Bauer Island. Harry Bauer, 1907 to 1995. On this island, lifelong Gahanna resident Harry Doodler Bauer held an annual bicycle race for the area youth between 1940 to 1970. He lived and operated a bike repair shop at the corner of High and Walnut Streets and expressed his concern for others through a common interest in biking. He lived according to his own conscience, and as we celebrate our sesquicentennial on the doorstep of the new millennium, we celebrate his zest for living each day to the fullest. May we do the same in our own unique ways. Dedicated September 19th, 1999.
There was all kinds of little odd quirks to Harry, but he was part of what made Gahanna what it is. We respect people who think differently and do differently and who love the freedom of America, the freedom of Gahanna, where we try to work with people and let them live within all the freedom they can handle, and let the law work to assist them, not to punish them.
I think one of the blessings of a community like Gahanna is it made there was room for people like that who wanted to contribute in these unique ways, and they were rewarded in their own kind of unique ways.
I worry today that people like that may be looked at as it's not a good thing for the community. He was a great thing for the community.
Do you think the world would be a better place if there were more Harry Bowers?
If there were the people that were the right mindset to understand and appreciate a Harry Bower, yeah.